I began animating in 1988 for the Don Bluth studio in Dublin, Ireland, and worked on about 4 features there until I moved to America, where I also did a lot of work on hand-drawn computer animation. Then I migrated into Flash and Harmony and all that kind of puppet stuff. So in the last 2 years, I've been teaching a lot of courses for lynda.com, since known as LinkedIn Learning Library. And I found that initially when I did my courses, I would use puppets to like Flash animated style stuff to teach the animation slides. But at some point I thought, let's just go back to drawing by hand. It'll take a little bit longer, but the quality will look better. And I wasn't wrong. The quality of the hand-drawn slides was so much better than my best efforts with a puppet, like in Flash or Harmony. It's still a puppet. So what I want to do through the course of several movies here is to show you how to do hand-drawn animation with zero cost. We're using a free software called KRITA, which is really good. It's a little flaky sometimes. I've had a couple of crashes, but honestly, these days Photoshop is a little better. I've had some doozies with that as well. But KRITA is a nice piece of software. It's free. There are versions of it available for Windows, Linux, and Mac. So if you're a student or you want to just mess around and you don't want to pay a cloud subscription fee, which I think are kind of a rip-off to be honest, then this is great. So there were a few gotchas with it and I'll show you them. And if you're coming from a Photoshop background like I am, my muscle memory is all Photoshop. So there are various kind of tricks that you can use. You can customize keyboard shortcuts and whatnot. I do have pre-existing videos I've made. I'll put the notes below for customizing shortcuts and screen, user interface stuff as well. So if you want to watch them, you can. I will try to update you as we proceed through here. What I want to do with this is to show, if you're starting from scratch, show you how we do the whole thing, how you approach the animation, not just how you technically do it, but how you like lay out a scene, and how you apply the hand-drawn techniques to a digital process. So that's pretty much it. I'll put links to the KRITA website and any other technical garbage in the notes below if you want to try it. And let's get cracking. So first things first, we will make a new file. And 1920 by 1080 is probably a safe bet. If you go higher, you get nicer brush looks. But honestly, 1920 by 1080 will probably give you a better frame rate if you're on a slower machine too. So let's create that. And I'm going to zoom out. So just a couple of quick notes. The defaults for scrubby zoom and rotate are spacebar and shift, and spacebar and control. So one issue with that is I don't like the 2-finger thing. So there's a pre-existing movie in, again, I'll link below, where I've remapped the scrubby and the rotate onto the R and the Z key. So if you see me doing this or this, and then resetting, all that's explained in my previous movie on shortcuts. But you can use spacebar and shift, spacebar and control, and spacebar to navigate around for now if you want. The other thing that you might see that's sometimes different with me, I like tabbed windows, and I find sometimes I need to have 2 windows open at once, and that is under select, or actually settings, configure KRITA, and where are we, general, and that was under window, and under multiple document mode, sub windows or tabs. So I like sub windows rather than tabs. And then sometimes you might find you prefer tabs, that's fine. Then the first time I did that, I lost my tab. And where did it go? It's here. These little icons up here will bring the tabs back. So again, if you're the kind of person who wants to compare 2 different things side by side, very important to have that. But again, if you notice that my screen sometimes looks different, that's why. The other thing too, brushes, you go to brushes, all, and you can resize these windows here. You have your layers panel, color panel. The all brushes is almost overload, too many. So they have like pre-existing brushes that you can do stuff with. So you could pick, let's see, sketch. And you can probably find like a very pencil-y brush. I recommend something, you can work with anything you like. Honestly, it doesn't matter as long as you can draw okay with it. But I would just say spend a little bit of time finding a brush that you really like drawing with. I've actually got another movie dealing with the brushes alone. I've made my own default set, and I'll put the links to that package in the notes. So, but I draw at least with this with a nice kind of scraggy brush because I don't want to tighten up too much. We're rough here. This is very loose, messy. It's just to like get used to the program. It's just to get comfortable with it. So a loose brush might be a better one to work with. Use the bracket keys to make it bigger. So I'm going to work for this one with this kind of very scratchy brush tip. It will eliminate my temptation to tie it down. So here we are. First things first is we have our layer panel here. Oh, actually, first things first, if you don't see the animation timeline, that is hidden away under settings, Dockers, animation timeline. You select that, it will open the timeline down here. If you're familiar with the Photoshop timeline, it does a similar thing. It takes the layers panel, turns it on its side 90 degrees, and treats it like an animation timeline with one major improvement. Every layer has its own internal animation timeline. So that one layer is no longer one drawing, it's 10, 20, 1,000 drawings. So I'll show you how we proceed into that momentarily. For first things first, we have our background layer and we have our paint layer 1. I'm going to click on that and rename it ball rough. We'll just call it rough because it's going to be rough. And then we'll do like a new layer beneath background. I'll just call that one, hit that plus here, call that one line. It's just a reference. And what I want to do is to hit this like line tool here and just draw a line. And so if you click and hold it down, it'll draw a straight line anywhere. So I'm going to click here. And I think if I hold shift, it locks it to 90 degrees or different degree angles. So that's what we want, flat ground plane here. And we're going to be dropping the ball along a vertical axis. So I'm going to make the line a bit smaller, click and do that. That's going to be our drop. So we don't wobble the ball as it's going down. Just a simple little reference layer. And let's bring the opacity of this down really low. So we just vaguely see it. We don't really have to have a very good look at it. So that is that layer set up. The other thing too that might help us to see the ball rough here and the ball rough here, they map one to the other. So if I right click on this and I change the layer style for the ball to say orange, see how the layer here has gone orange. So it makes it easier to, don't be confused by the active layer being blue. You see this color here is the orange, that color here is the orange. So the reference layer we can make, say yellow. And it's not much of a yellow, but you see it's marked then as a different color. So that will help us to not get confused or to accidentally draw on the wrong layer. So let's do a thumbnail. So I'm going to move this layer down a bit and you make a new layer again, stick it at the top, call it thumbs. And I'm just going to, let's see, make sure we're on black, hit the brush tool. And our first ball will be about here. And this is all on one layer. So that'll be number 1. And the next one will be, we'll just move over one. We'll draw the next one here. It's going to be dropping vertically, but I want to move them across the screen so they don't all clutter on top of one another. And the next one will be falling like about that fast. So we're dealing with something about the size of a football. And I'm dropping it from about here in reality onto the floor. So that thing's going to hit the ground before a second will pass, I would think. So I would say the second frame would be around 17 or 19 frames. Because we're going to be animating on 24 frames a second. So we stay in the classical animation timing system. So let's make this one, say, 15. So there's always that, could be 17, could be 19. But the beauty of doing it like this is you're stretching your brain. You're not thinking about it by moving a timeline in a CGI program. You're actually thinking. Then it'll be hitting boom up. Maybe so it hits the ground and it's going to like come up about this high. So it probably won't be as many frames again on the way up. So let's say it's 15 on the way down. Maybe it's 11 on the way up. So that's 27 might be the next one. And then the fourth one will be shorter again. It was 15 on the way down from here. It'll be, how much did it take to go up? It was about, what, 12 on the way down too. So that'll be about, what, 39 if my maths are right. So about that. So notice I'm using odd numbers as well. It's a good habit to get into to do that, because again, anything that was done in the traditional animation period was done for a very good reason. So the beauty of animating on odd numbers, it disciplines your mind. When you're working on ones and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I think it leads to a certain kind of mushiness in the way you think about timing patterns. But when you have to lock your drawings into 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, it kind of makes it a bit easier in some respects, that discipline of only having those slots. Now, not to say that you can't go to odd numbers or even numbers, whatever, as you like, you can. But if you try to favor the odds, trust me, it really will simplify things. It's like a discipline on your mind. So these are the rough timing patterns. So in case I get lost or forget where we are, so let's click off the thumbs. We're just going to work with the ball layer. We have the reference layer beneath. I want to make sure that we have the ball rough layer selected, and we're here. And now we do our first drawing. So let's just draw. That's horrendous. Let's go in a bit tighter. I'm still sort of getting used to the brush tools in KRITA. My kind of muscle memory is so used to the Photoshop brushes that it sometimes it is a little like, ooh. But again, there's some brushes in here that I do like a lot. So okay, so that is this. Let's say you want to move it a little bit. It's slightly off that vertical axis. We just use the lasso tool down here, and we can move it with move a layer. We have move a layer and transform a layer or selection. So I like this one for that. And we can make sure that's nailed on. And this is drawing number 1. And it helps to select the brush and not another tool. And remember from our thumbnail that the next one will be 15. So I'm going to do a timing chart. It'll take us to 15. And the timing chart will then determine the spacing of the positions of all of the in-between drawings. So let's space it so that it's sort of even here, but then it's slowing out of this. I might want to actually sharpen this thing up, because this brush is great for arty stuff, but it's not really very good for letters. So let's do this. Actually, I kind of like this brush better. This is 1, 15. Yeah, let's use this one because I think it'll just be easier. So this will be frame 13. That'll be 11. That's the breakdown. Then 9, then 7, then 5. No need to number them. We know what they are. So what I'm going to do, actually, I'm just going to get rid of that. And let's draw with this brush instead. And the other thing you can do as well with the brush, you can take the opacity down, which is kind of nice, because then you can build it up. Keep it loose and just build up layer by layer. And if I hit E on the keyboard and make the opacity higher, then my brush turns into an eraser. I can turn it back again. So it's a nice little trick. So anyway, that is more of like a, looks like more of a drawing. And let's see, where are we? Okay, we're on number 1. Now the next thing that I want to do is to draw 15. Now I could cheat it and just copy and paste this down, but I want to draw it. So because it kind of gives us a better feel for how we would do it if this was actually on paper. So let's move on the timeline layer to the next one. And this little button here, add blank frame, we click on that and the ball has disappeared. It's still there. If we go back one, there it is. If I go forward, gone. Switch on the onion skin and now you can see where it was. So that's the original position. So what I'm going to do is just trace it. Bit of a cheat now, but we are, let me go back in. My Cintiq is a bit wonky sometimes at the top of the screen. I think there's a ripple in it. Sometimes I get really bad lines up there. So, okay, move out. And I want to position this down. So this is a shift and trace cheat that I'm going to do. And just drag it down to there. And now we have our number 15. So let me hit the brush tool. Number each in the top right So you want to get into the habit of putting your drawing number on the top right corner of the page. Top left if you have to use the top right for some other reason, but somewhere on the page has to be your drawing number or you might get lost very easily. So now we have number 1, number 15 from our original thumbs. The next one is 27. So let's put another one down here. And at this point, I don't have to push this little button here anymore because anytime I add a new drawing, it'll automatically create a new one. So we don't want to go as high on the second one. It's somewhere around here. So I'm just going to draw this time. I'm not going to cheat it. So again, I'm going to keep this rough. Just yell if you see me starting to tie things down too much. And then the fourth one will be again here. So rather than doing anything fancy, I'm just going to trace over it. Notice how part of that line disappeared. That's like a weird little KRITA like drawing glitch. So don't worry about that. Sometimes that happens. All the lines are still there. So let's see, what else do we want to do here? Next is to not forget to draw our frame numbers. Having given you the big lecture on the importance of numbering your drawings, I then forgot to do it. So the next one is 27. And then the last one was 39, I think, according to our plan. And let's switch off onion skin for a second. So here's, we're accelerating down, boom, into 15. This is 15. At this point, we bounce off the ground and slow in before we get gravity again. So this timing chart should be going to number 27. And I would maybe make this thirds as well. But then here we're starting to slow in. You could make it a half, a half, a half. That might be a bit snappier, but I think we don't want to be too snappy either. So 17, 19, 21, 23, 25. That's quite a few actually. So that might be a little too many, but we'll see. And then 15, 1, 15, 27, 39. So the same thing here, only this time it's the opposite. We're going from here to 39. So I would again a third, and then we're slowing out of that one. 37, 35, 33, 31. Might be a bit on the slow side, but let's do it and see what it looks like. Okay, so we have our frame numbers, and then the other thing we would do is say end. The final drawing, just say there's no more. Go home. So what would be the next step would be to do the big breakdown drawings, and as you can tell, we don't have anywhere to put them. Let me let the cat out. Worst assistant animator ever. So let's do that. So different ways of doing it. The clunky way first. So the clunky way is we can select each one of these and just click and drag, which is really good to be able to do, but sometimes you need a little more power than that. And the problem with doing that is it can be very fiddly. It's easy to select the wrong one. So if I want to insert an exposure here, you right click, and I think we go as a hold frames, and you can insert hold frame, and you can keep doing that. And that, my God, is that tedious. So I inserted a custom keyboard shortcut using where I mapped these commands onto the minus key and the equal key on the keyboard. Pick whatever keys you like, but strong recommendation to go to Configure KRITA keyboard shortcuts under animation, and they are insert hold frame and remove hold frame. So by adding these, we can click on that first key and I can add exposures or remove them. So if you want to hold a drawing for 10, 12, 13 frames, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Really easy. So I'm going to open up a little gap here for our new breakdown. Put onion skin on. And under this little onion here, you can control the onion skin. You can control the color, the intensity of the onion, so be aware of that. Under the 3 horizontal lines, we can select frame rate, which is 24. The number of frames that we're going to use, in this case, let's just make it 50 because 100 is too many. And you can see the 50 frame here now is the end of our animation scene. So what I want to do is to number drawing 11. So on this drawing here, I can force it to make a new exposure by clicking on that button again, or I can just start drawing. So let's make this number 11. it is going to be 1/3 of the way favoring number 1, which is the red drawing. So 1 is here and 15 is here. It'll be somewhere around here. Now, again, your drawing ability might not be great. So let's say you find this intimidating. There's nothing stopping you again from, cheating, using a little shift and trace trick where you just sort of trace the original. I would then take that and then just drag it down, but then continue to draw out of the place. So just so that you get used to the process of, whoops, let me deselect there, of drawing in the correct position. But you can certainly use that as a guide so that you know your volume isn't too far off. And I have mapped the commands for next keyframe onto A and S. You can also use the keys on the numeric keypad to go forward and back by 1 frame. But for example, one reason why I like to have these commands is that if I want to move from keyframe to keyframe, I can do it like this. So and I don't have to shuttle through each individual frame. Sometimes you want to go frame by frame. Sometimes you want to go keyframe to keyframe. It's just one of those things. So let me close this back up again. And let's see here. So, and those keyboard shortcuts are under keyboard shortcuts, animation, next keyframe, previous keyframe, and I set D to play pause animation, which may have been a mistake because I often trigger it by mistake. But anyway, that's that. So we have 1, 11, and what's the next one? 1, 11, and 15. So let's complete the in-betweens and then see what this looks like. And I might do some cheats here just to speed things up, but I'll certainly accelerate the drawing process a bit. So the other thing before we get further into this is I would like to, let's make some placeholders first for this one and this one. So this is our key number 1. This will be our empty drawing for 1 in between. And this will be our breakdown number 11. And this will be our new drawing for the one slowing in. So what I want to do so that we don't get lost in this little long line of blue dots is let's use color codes on these. So we right click on here. Let me move this up a bit so you can see what I'm doing. So if I right click on here, we can make this one gray, and we can make the breakdown red, and we can make the other key gray. And so now when I begin to add the different in-betweens, I can see which ones are the key drawings, which ones are the breakdowns, and which ones are the in-betweens using color codes. So let's go in and zoom in a bit. And just very quickly now, I'm not going to get too picky. Please don't judge me. Please don't judge my awful drawing. It's terrible. It's embarrassing, actually. And then this one will be here. Okay, loose man, loose, don't get tied down. So then we will, this is going to be 11, so this is 9. And then the next one is coming out of 11, which is 13, going into 15. So now we have a bunch that are easing into here. So let's just very quickly add an exposure. Whoops. When I have the wrong window selected here, the wrong shortcut works. So if I have this window selected and I hit the plus, it zooms in. But when I have it here, this window, then it adds an exposure. So no big deal. So we go here, brush tool, start drawing, and it just makes a new drawing for me on the exposure. Oh God, that is so awful. I'm so sorry. And then we add another one here. And you notice too that they've taken the gray color, which is kind of annoying. So let me select these, make them no color, no color, no color. Because I want them to stand out from the gray. The gray, only the gray slug should only be for keys. So we have 1. Let's see if I've got the numbers right now. So this is 11, that'll be 9, 7, 5, 3. Brill. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. And then we have 13, 13, 15. So let's do the same thing on the way out. So we have an exposure here, add an empty slug, and then this is going to be a gray one. So here we're going from 15 to 27, And we're going to do number 19 first. So let's do 19. And 19 is favoring 27, so it'll be about here. When I began in animation, I began as an in-betweener. So, you know, all I did was I wasn't doing the fun ones, I was doing the in-betweens. That was fun. But yeah, it's the in-betweens that'll really get you because they are tedious. Let's make a new one here. So now we're going from 15 to 17. So this is 17 and that is 19. So again, write 19 with the under. And I don't know why I'm seeing 3 drawings. Now, I have had KRITA crash on me. So before I do anything else, and it does have autosave, but let me save this. File, save as, desktop, ball, basic. Okay, so here we go. I'll switch off Onion for a second. So we're going from 15 to 19. So if I make it like an empty drawing here and put on Onion, yeah, I should only see those 2. Sometimes the Onion skin sort of misfires and it'll show you 3. So it's like, just switch it off and on again. Hopefully that works. Okay, so this is number 17, right? So 15, 17, 19. And once again, I need to change these infernal colors because it's taken the wrong color here. And then that's red, 19. Okay, so 15, 17, 19. Next one would be 21. So that'll be here. So we're in 21, 23, 25, slowing into 27, which is here. So let's add exposure, empty drawing, and put Onion skin on. Zoom in a bit. And we'll have another one. Go here. And it's got the wrong color, so make sure it's off. We add a new exposure, new drawing. And this little glitch here is a render glitch in KRITA. That's not something that's been accidentally erased. So if you see that, don't panic. Usually you can switch it off and on and it's good to go again. And I think we have one more. So let's add one more exposure here. If I were to copy and paste each circle, it would start to look synthetic because that's something that you just would never see in hand-drawn animation. So you can do it, but at the cost of it no longer looking quite as naturalistic as you want. So, okay. And if I play this through with Onion skin off, you'll see what I mean. So it has a kind of a shimmer to it. And please stop now. So we have 19, oops, and then constantly you'll see me forget 21, 23, 25, 27. And now we have the fun part on the way down. So the next one will be 35. So let's just drag that to here. We'll make a new drawing here for 35. Put Onion on. And 35 is favoring the top one, so that should be about here. We would always hate it when the animator would give you like a lot of 1/3 favors because they're just a little harder to draw than a half, but they do actually look better a lot of the time. So, okay, let me move this over a bit. And you can reposition it. Well, the beauty of this is, at least with this point, you can reposition things like that. And that's a breakdown. And this should be gray. And this should be red. So again, we're just keep using the color codes again to keep track of what's a key, what's a breakdown. So the next one would add a new exposure in here. And this is 27 going into 35. This is 33. And now we're into halves again. The rest is just halves. So let's just drop them in really fast. And then the next one will be here too. And then one more again. And again, annoyingly, I need to manually like reset all of these colors. There might be a way to do that automatically, but right now I don't know. Okay, so we're going from 27 to 29, 31, 33, 35, and I have one more to do. And that's working in the wrong layer. Add that there, and we manually make a new exposure. and B for brush. And I think I've slid off a little bit again, so let's select that with the lasso tool, that's here, and just slide it over a little bit. So we can, back in the day when this is on paper, if you made that kind of mistake, you have to physically cut the paper and slide it. You scotch tape to tape it back down again. So we don't do that anymore. Let's click on here, remove that. Oh, no, we change the color to no color. So we have our keys in gray, we have our breakdowns in red, and we have our boring, soul-destroying in-betweens in this sort of default blue color. That's how we order it. So let's play it. Not too bad. Now, it's frames going on a bit long, but something you'll notice too is when I numbered this, I had it all numbered on odd numbers, and the timeline is playing at 24 FPS. So this is actually playing twice as fast as it should be. So we'll fix that by just going into every one of these and just add an extra exposure. I'm using the keyboard shortcut for whole frames, insert whole frame. I'm not sure if I can do a batch. Let's try it. Hey, does that work? I think I did. Let me go back to the very start. Should have always figured this out first, I guess. And if I go here to here, whoops. Let's see. Yep, that makes life quite a bit easier. So now if I play it, it's feeling more like a soft beach ball than anything else. Like my original intention was to feel more like a rigid football, but this timing feels more like a inflatable beach ball with the wind resistance and the lack of mass. So depending on the timing, I definitely put in too many drawings on this. I could modify it by, say, putting some of these back onto wands, and by doing that, what I'm doing is then giving it more the illusion of more weight. So let's actually do that. There's no harm in doing that. So let's go back into here, and then let's see here. If I remove that exposure, it gives it a bit more kinetic energy. And let's see. Now this will also like foul my original frame numbers. Depending on how picky you are, you might want to go in and renumber them all. With the world of digital stuff, you might let that go. So it just depends on what your production process. So let's see here. Let's play it again. So I want to definitely speed it up. So let's remove these. See how that feels. I'm starting to think I should just keep on wands, to be honest with you. So let's just do that. That's too fast. Okay, let's see here. So I know what to do actually. I'm going to go back to keeping this on 2s. But I'm going to just delete a couple of these drawings at the top. I think if I do that, that'll take some of the floatiness out of it. So let's get rid of these two. Actually, I think I can just hit delete. Will that work? Cut keyframe, there we go. Remove keyframe. Now, so that's good. So now I can get rid of these. Here. And probably take out another one of the drawings at the top here. That's the smoothest way of doing it, rather than fiddling around with putting this one on wands and that one on 2s. So get rid of that one and get rid of this one, definitely. So right click on here, remove keyframe, and then get rid of that exposure, 1, 2. Get rid of this one, remove keyframe, and then 1, 2. That's a little better. And that one looks real wonky, doesn't it? Very strange. So let me lasso that. Control T, or using this tool here. transform a layer or selection. Don't know how that happened. Okay, Control D to get rid of the selection. So let's see, let me switch off onion skin, it's distracting me now. So I think this one could be removed as well, and that one as well, possibly, at least this one here. So we remove that keyframe, take that one down. That's a bit better. It's getting closer to what I had in mind. So it's feeling more like a rigid ball now that's been dropped, and it has a little bit of more mass to it. It's not like a blow up beach ball anymore. So let's see if we can save this first. So File, Save As, and I just want to overwrite what's there. Yes. So that's the ball has been laid down. We have our timing sequence lined out. What else? Oh, right. So the next step is, I found the first time I did this a little tricky. It's to export this as an MP4 file. And I was hoping the program would just do it by itself, and it doesn't. So you have to install another piece of software called FFmpeg, and luckily it's free. It's a little goofy, but it's not awful. First time I tried it, I thought this is gonna like be a deal breaker. So let me move this window over here. So the links that you need are this website here gives you the codecs, and it's this file here, FFmpeg. By the time you're looking at this site could look differently, but basically this link should still be functional. The KRITA website was very useful in getting this to work. I think there are less complexity involved than I was afraid of at first. And I also found a very nice YouTube video where there's a good job of explaining how this is done. So essentially downloaded at least for my Windows system, downloaded the FFmpeg. You put it in, let's see here, local disk. Once you extract it, FFmpeg is here. It extracts to here. The exe file is there. So when you get the file, you unzip it, and then you put it somewhere in your C drive. So now when I go to export this, I go File, Render Animation, and I can render an image sequence. You can do that without this plugin thing. You can just export a PNG sequence. A PNG sequence is fine. Bring it into Final Cut Pro or After Effects Premiere, not a problem. But if you want to export an MP4 video file directly from KRITA, then you want this program. So the thing to be sure you do, you go to FFmpeg and you take yourself directly to the folder where you've saved it, in the bin, there, open, and now you can save this doodad to whatever you like. So I have Ball Basic MP4, save, okay, and now we're rendering. And we should have the final video here. So I'm going to let it play, and what I'm going to do is overlay this on top of the animation playing in KRITA to see did they play at the same speed. This, I guarantee you, is playing at the right speed. This is playing at 24 FPS. The KRITA, sometimes these programs don't quite play at the right rate. So Adobe Photoshop, for example, if I do this in Photoshop, will never play at exactly the right speed. You have to export a MP4 file. So if we go back into here and play this, let's see if I just make it a bit bigger too. I think if I can put them both side by side, I think they will probably match up pretty well. They seem to be lining up pretty well. I'll overlay this in video editing so we can compare them. And if they match one to one, then we know KRITA is doing a really nice job, at least with this fairly basic animation up 1080p of matching the frame playback. But I think KRITA is like a really nice program for learning animation. So I'm going to do more courses like this where I break down the process of animating. So in the next movie, we'll take the same boring ball and start to add squash and stretch, because I didn't want to do a bouncing ball with the arcs, squash and stretch, and the timing. There's more than enough figuring, especially with KRITA, figuring out the timeline management and adding and moving exposures without worrying about arcs and squash and stretch. So we'll also add color and see how, what we can do to clean this up a little bit. So that's basically it. If you like this, stay tuned, because I'm hoping to do a lot more where we move past the rudimentary stuff and we get on to doing some walk cycles and runs and staggers and kind of stuff where we actually push ourselves a bit more. Yeah, and don't feel like tied down by the brushes I use. Use whatever you like, whatever you want to work with. You work with that. And hopefully I'll see you in the next movie. Bye.